Tonight, every single person on Earth is going to stay awake. Not by choice, not because of insomnia or anxiety or a newborn keeping them up. The ability to sleep simply switches off, globally, simultaneously. At midnight tonight, 8 billion people will lie in their beds, close their eyes, and feel nothing happen. No drowsiness, no drift, no sleep. Most people assume the first few hours would be fine. You have pulled an all-nighter before. You know what tired feels like. You have managed. What you have never managed is what happens when tired has nowhere to go. Sleep is not rest. That is the first thing to understand. Rest is sitting on a sofa. Sleep is a biological maintenance cycle that your brain has been running every night since before you were born. During sleep, your brain flushes itself. Cerebrospinal fluid pulses through the neural tissue, clearing out the metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking hours. The most significant of these is a protein called beta amyloid, the same protein that builds up in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. Every night that you sleep, your brain runs a cleaning cycle. Every night you do not, the waste accumulates. This is not a metaphor. The neuroscientist Matthew Walker at the University of California, Berkeley, has described sleep as the single most effective thing we can do to reset our brain and body health each day. Remove it entirely from every human on Earth simultaneously, and the consequences begin not in weeks or months, but in hours. Hour 1. The first hour feels manageable. You are awake. You are alert. The night stretches ahead of you, and there is a strange energy to being conscious when the world expects you to be unconscious. But underneath that surface alertness, the biology has already shifted. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, begins rising within the first hour of missed sleep. Not dramatically, not yet, but measurably. Your body reads the absence of sleep as a threat signal. It does not know that sleep is globally unavailable. It only knows that the maintenance cycle has not started and something must be wrong. Your heart rate increases slightly. Your blood pressure edges upward. Your immune system, which does much of its repair work during sleep, begins receiving mixed signals about whether it is day or night, active time or recovery time, and your brain begins making its first errors. The prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for rational decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation, is the first area to show measurable degradation under sleep deprivation. Within the first 90 minutes of missed sleep, reaction times slow. Error rates in simple tasks increase. Emotional responses become slightly exaggerated. Small frustrations feel larger. Small pleasures feel more intense. Because the prefrontal cortex that normally moderates emotional response is already running below full capacity. You would not notice any of this. That is the dangerous part. Sleep deprivation impairs your ability to assess your own impairment. You feel fine. You are not fine. Day 1. 24 hours without sleep. The research on this point is consistent and alarming. The cognitive impairment produced by 24 hours without sleep is equivalent to a blood alcohol level of approximately 0.10%, above the legal drink drive limit in most countries. Every driver on every road on Earth is now, by that measure, drunk. The neurologist Charles Czeisler at Harvard Medical School has spent decades documenting the effects of sleep deprivation on performance and found that after 17 hours without sleep, cognitive function deteriorates to the same degree as someone who is legally intoxicated. At 24 hours, it is worse. And unlike alcohol, sleep deprivation carries no social signal. The drunk driver knows they have been drinking. The sleep-deprived driver feels completely normal. They cannot feel their own impairment. They cannot compensate for what they cannot detect. By the end of day 1, the accident rate on every road, in every factory, on every construction site, in every hospital operating theater has risen sharply. Not because people are taking risks, because they genuinely cannot perceive that their judgment is compromised. The hospitals begin to fill, not yet with sleep deprivation patients, with the consequences of sleep-deprived decisions made by everyone else. Week 1. The hallucinations begin on day 3. This is not a dramatic movie hallucination. It does not announce itself with visions of monsters or voices from nowhere. It begins as a flicker. A shadow at the edge of vision that disappears when you look at it. A sound that might have been a word, a face in a window that was not there. The neuroscientist Alan Rechtschaffen, who spent decades studying sleep deprivation, described what happens to the sleep-deprived brain as a slow dissolution of the boundary between waking and dreaming. The brain, denied the REM sleep during which it normally processes and consolidates experience, begins inserting dream fragments into waking consciousness. not as full hallucinations, as intrusions, small pieces of the sleeping mind bleeding into the waking one. By day 5 without sleep, these intrusions are more frequent and more vivid. Paranoia sets in, not as a choice or a personality trait, but as a neurological consequence. The prefrontal cortex that normally evaluates threat signals rationally is so degraded that as the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, begins operating without its usual oversight. Everything feels threatening. Everyone seems hostile. 8 billion people simultaneously becoming paranoid, hallucinating, and cognitively impaired. The social consequences are catastrophic. Every institution that depends on human judgment, governments, hospitals, courts, financial markets, military commands, is now being run by people who are neurologically incapable of making sound decisions and who cannot perceive their own incapacity. Month 1. The body is failing. Sleep deprivation at this scale and duration produces effects on every major organ system. The cardiovascular system, which depends on the recovery period of sleep to repair and regulate, is under sustained, unprecedented stress. Blood pressure has been elevated for weeks. Inflammatory markers are at dangerous levels. The immune system, chronically disrupted, is mounting responses to threats that do not exist while failing to respond adequately to ones that do. The metabolic system has collapsed. Sleep regulates the hormones leptin and ghrelin, which control hunger and satiety. Without sleep, leptin drops and ghrelin rises. The body reads sleep deprivation as famine and responds by demanding more food, while simultaneously becoming less efficient at processing it. After a month without sleep, the metabolic profile of every human on Earth resembles that of a severely diabetic patient. There is a rare genetic condition called fatal familial insomnia, in which a mutation prevents the brain from entering sleep. Patients with this condition die, typically within 12 to 18 months of symptom onset, after passing through escalating stages of insomnia, hallucination, dementia, and organ failure. It is one of the most disturbing conditions in medical literature precisely because it demonstrates what happens when a human being truly cannot sleep. After 1 month, the human race is collectively somewhere in the early stages of that trajectory. Year 1. Nobody has survived a full year of complete sleep deprivation. The animal research suggests it is not possible. Rats deprived of sleep entirely die within 2 to 3 weeks. The mechanism of death appears to be systemic organ failure driven by immune dysfunction and metabolic collapse. There is no human equivalent study. There does not need to be. The biology is consistent enough that the conclusion is not in serious scientific dispute. A year without sleep is not survivable. But here is the thought that matters, sitting at the edge of all of this. You will sleep tonight. In a few hours, your brain will run the cleaning cycle it has been running every night of your life. The beta amyloid will be cleared. The memories of today will be consolidated and filed. The emotional residue of everything that happened will be processed and reduced to something manageable. Your immune system will do its repairs. Your cardiovascular system will recover. You will wake up tomorrow not quite the same person who went to sleep, because sleep is not a pause in your life. It is part of how your life is built. Every morning you wake up, you are, in a very real biological sense, the product of the night before. Tonight, that process will run again, quietly, invisibly, without you having to do anything at all. That is not nothing. That is everything.